This week on Alien Theorists Theorizing.
We drive you from us, whoever you may be, unclean spirits, all satanic powers, all infernal invaders, all wicked legions, assemblies, and sects.
Within 5 days, it goes from exactly how they are into like a violent shell of themselves within like a week's time.
But that's pretty much where we're at.
I mean, it happens
now.
once a month,
Right?
but
Yeah,
you know
like
what I'm saying?
Something insisted upon taking the phone off the hook. Dishes had been flying out of cabinets, crashing on the floor into pieces. Marcia was sure they were being haunted. Ed, however, was skeptical.
Exorcisms.
Welcome to Alien Theorists Theorizing Case File 295. Exorcisms. I'm Spooky Braden.
I'm Demonic Zell.
I wasn't prepared, so I'm just Andrew.
He's just scared Andrew.
I was, terrified.
Terrified Andrew.
Frightened Andrew.
Changing it up.
It is that time of
Underprepared
the year.
and terrified.
Spooktober is upon us yet again. So we're going to be this month focusing on some spookier cases, maybe that don't always
And in aliens.
You know, they could be aliens if it's spooky enough.
Aliens
We found
are
a spooky
spooky.
enough one. Yeah, they're fucking
Honestly,
terrifying.
I think I'd be more scared of aliens than anything else.
But tonight, we're gonna round it up a couple. Each of us brought to the table a story of exorcism,
Whether they be urban legend or true, or a blend of both.
Oh, mine's 100% true. It was on TV.
dude. Mine is 100% true as well.
Mine was a movie based
Like,
on real events. So yeah, I guess we're all true.
Oh,
Mine-
boys, little
Dude,
truth.
the
on
one
it.
I brought to the table, legit, people got prosecuted, like went to court for the outcomes of the exorcism. Like it was there. It's fucking terrible. Like terrible. If Dan was here, Dan would be like, hey, listen, these were real people.
Yeah.
Even at that time, these are real people, right? Too much drudgery.
Way too much. This whole month is going to be filled with fucking drudgery.
Oh, just
nonstop
fucking
drudgery.
The most
Submerged in
drudgery we could ever forthcome. So, I mean, like everyone, we've all seen like The Exorcist, right? Like I think that's where we all know. Like
The most
you know
famous,
what
it's got to be the most famous horror movie of all time.
I mean? Yeah, 100%.
I think it was like the
that's
first,
right.
like that movie came out, people literally like puked and fainted in the theater.
yeah,
Yeah,
like,
it was.
That kind of shit didn't happen prior
fucking
to this.
pussies.
It was, and
Who's throwing up in a theater? I've never watched a movie where it's like,
Especially like, listen, I know like visual effects weren't crazy back then, but you watch that movie and you're just like, I'm not. What?
Oh, God.
I've seen someone
What?
puke in real life before. That's not what this looks like.
that's because it wasn't
At all.
demonic puke.
Yeah, that's fair.
Projectile.
It wasn't Satan's puke.
360 projectile puke.
Could you imagine every time you go to a theater, watch a horror movie, like watching The Conjuring, and like there's a jump scare and you hear like, I can see, I mean, there is like a genre of like I would say it's more gorer is what I call it, where it's not scary, it's just like Saw is that genre for me, is where it's just like,
Oh, when that chick
people
gets
getting
fucking yarded into that pit of hypodermic needles.
yeah. I did.
Not for
I
me.
watched that and I was like, ew, but I wasn't like, oh, give me a bucket.
No, you'd shit. That's your puke.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just start
that's true.
shitting your pants.
This is rolling out his leg.
Yeah, reverse.
Just fucking projectile pea soup out of your ass.
Yeah, that's my version. There wasn't there. I'm sure Scary Movie did that. Or
Which
did
one?
they just do the?
I'm a shit all
None of
over
them.
these walls, Ray. That's all I remember. I love that part.
Now you had a little write up, Andrew. Did you not, of exorcisms?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, before
It's gonna be filled with-
before we talk about it though, I have to exorcise the studio.
Yeah, exercise these demons, though.
It's the demon's been in here for quite some time. It's been like 6 years.
I thought they were your friends.
Yeah, he's getting annoying now. It's time to go.
So it's time for a workout. Get a little pump for these demons. Gotta exercise them.
So I found the exorcism rites, and what it says at the top of this article is, do not read unless you're a priest.
Yeah, you went to fucking. Did you go to?
I've been trained.
Yeah, he went to Catholic
I've been trained.
school.
I've been trained in all of the religious arts over the years.
Yeah, as a Catholic school survivor, I'm sure you've you've got more training than most.
No, I was Adventist. We hate the Catholics. All right.
Oh,
Just even weirder.
Oh, the weirdest. It's one of the weirdest.
Yeah,
Gotta
that's
be.
the weirdest one. You guys go up in a spaceship after, don't you?
I know.
Where there's no meat.
It's very
Married
minimal.
cousins?
Minimal meat. It's it's a weird one for sure.
All right.
But
We drive you from us, whoever you may be, unclean spirits, all satanic powers, all infernal invaders, all wicked legions, assemblies, and sects. In the name and by the power of our Lord Jesus Christ, may you be snatched away and driven from the church of God and from the souls made to the image and likeness of God and redeemed by the precious blood of the divine Lamb. Be gone!
that's a badass speech. So
Yeah,
I'd
it
leave
was.
the body.
we'll see.
Oh, you just need to, all you're missing are those fucking big old chops. Like that guy we
Yeah,
talked about,
big
right?
old mutton chops.
Yeah, the guy that had that wizard battle.
Dude, why didn't we grow? We should have all grown mutton chops for this.
I could have shaved in a small one here.
Yeah.
Definitely could
It
have.
would be interesting to see how a bunch of bald dudes would look with fucking mutton chops.
I'll tell you right now, bad.
Probably.
You think so? I mean, you could
Bad.
probably do it right now, Braden. You probably just comb down the sides of what you got going on the top, and you'd have mutton chops, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Fold them down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just unlace the weave going on.
You have the double comb over all the way over, pinch it, and then fold it back.
Crisscross like this, right? To lock.
Fill it all
Good
in.
luck. Hell yeah. So, exorcism from the ancient Greek ex orkosmos, which meant binding by oath, is the religious or spiritual practice of evicting demons, jinns, or other malevolent spirit entities from a person or an area that is believed to be possessed. The process was born out of the belief that Jesus and his disciples were able to command demons out of the possessed, discussed in the New Testament, and have been traced back to the 2nd century. The practice under religion has two necessary requirements for success. The exorcist must have an approved member from the church and have strong faith. This may be done by causing the entity to swear an oath, performing an elaborate ritual, or simply by commanding it to depart in the name of a higher power, which Zell just did.
I just did. It's
He
gone.
commanded the shit out of that demon.
Yeah, Jesus compels you.
The power of Christ.
The power of Christ compels
Christ
you.
compels you, yes.
In general, people considered to be possessed are not regarded as evil in themselves, nor wholly responsible for their actions, because possession is considered to be unwilling manipulation by the demon, resulting in harm to self or others. Therefore, practitioners regard exorcism as more of a cure than a punishment. The mainstream rituals usually take this into account, making sure that there is no violence to the possessed, which is not always true, only that they will be tied down if there is a potential for violence. I mean, fucking malnourishment and a bunch of other shit. But the practice of expelling demons from afflicted stretches far beyond the confines of the Catholic Church. It is widely regarded by Pentecostal churches and evangelicals who often refer to exorcisms as deliverance ministry. That's when, when they get out there with the fucking snakes and you fucking, you know what I mean? Like doing them dances and letting them bite them. Protestant missionaries have driven the practice growth popularity in developing nations, fueling a surge in popularity. What Zell was just saying was St. Michael's prayer against Satan and the rebellious angels.
Yeah, that's the first part of. I skipped the first part. It's not as cool.
Which is usually like that's
There's
the
a lot
strongest.
of preamble.
Yeah, there's a lot of you got to really ramp it up before you really cast the demons out.
Yeah. It's
just
a
got
low
the good
rumble
part,
to
right?
get into the
Yeah,
good
just skip
stuff.
to the good
Just cut
part.
to the trim the fat.
Trim it.
Yeah.
Trim the fat.
Yeah.
Just get
No
rid
one's
of
got
the
time
demons.
for that. Everyone's got short attention spans. Let's get right to the exorcism.
That is like considered the motherfucker of the exorcism ritual speeches, right? Like
it's
that's
the
the one.
greatest
That's
spell.
it's the badass one. Obviously, so like exorcisms don't take place in happy environments. We know this. Things are bad, spooky, terrible. But
Yeah, it's not
there's
for fun.
also a lot more fucked up that comes along with exorcisms because, a lot of these situations derive from situations where people are suffering from mental illness or submerged in like addiction, or even have something as simple as like, tonic-clonic seizures, which a lot of times get mistaken for being possessed.
Or all of those are because they are possessed, and it's the demon who's actually doing it to them.
Touche.
We don't use exorcism in the if the doctor just came in and started exorcising, how many people could you heal?
Buddy, what are you talking about? I do them in the ambulance all the time. The power of Narcan compels you.
Rise.
They do.
That's all Narcan is. Yeah. Narcan is just they've found a way to put
holy
that.
Water.
It's holy
Narcan
water.
is just fucking. It's Latin for holy water. That's
right into the nasal passages, and you're instantly risen from the
nasal
dead.
passages.
Yeah,
I am, brother. Doesn't get absorbed as well through the nasal passages. You guys like dart fucking 4 milligrams up their nose and they absorb maybe like 1.6.
Well, that's why you give them like 6.
Double barrel, hey? 2 in each hand. Bop, bop. Double tap. Instant fucking withdrawal. Puking everywhere, miserable, angry.
Yeah, they're
possession.
Showing all the
that's the possession. That's 100%.
I think I told the story after I started Narcan so just recently, but the next time I'm going to treat it as I'm going to be fucking. I'm going to bring a cross out.
Well, have you guys seen Bringing Out the Dead?
No.
With Nicolas Cage? Oh God, you got it. It's a wicked movie. They're paramedic, and him and Ving Rhames. They're like, there's this kid that overdosed, and they know that he's overdosed, and all his friends are like, think he's dead, and everybody's freaking out, and he gets all these fucking kids, these punks, to hold hands, and he starts praying as Nicolas Cage is injecting him with Narcan, and the kid jumps up, and everybody's like, oh my God, like what the fuck? it's so good.
Now, like, to bring us on to this is. Exorcism has its roots in history. I mean, it's gone major in pop culture, but from my understanding is that to get a true exorcism, there's a lot of paperwork involved. You have you know what I mean? Like it has to go right to the top to actually get the legit,
so the Pope?
The legit heavies to come out of the Vatican to, you know what I mean? To exorcise some demons. So it's a lot of times, you'll have these, amateur hours trying to make a name for themselves, right? I can do this,
yep.
Right? If I can do this, maybe it'll give me some street cred with the Vatican, and you know what? Maybe they'll think about me for the roster. Sometimes that's not even available. So you have people that don't know fucking jack shit about exorcism trying to do it themselves, and that leads me to. Our first case. Well,
I thought you were going to say that was going to lead to our new product that we'll be offering as pre-recorded exorcisms.
Done by professionals.
Yeah, that's
experts.
Let's go.
Us. Yeah. That's a great idea.
Right? I think so.
Halloween. This is the exorcism of Kennedy Ife.
Kennedy Ife.
Now, I've heard Ife and Ifey, but I think it's Ife. I-F-E. Iffy. I think it's Ife.
Ife.
Now, so picture this. I want you to picture this. Imagine for a second a loved one of your guys as a spouse or something. Within 5 days, it goes from exactly how they are into a violent shell of themselves within a week's time, right?
It's taken
no
probably
idea
about
why.
It's taken about 4 or 5 years, but that's pretty much where we're at.
It happens once a month,
right?
but you know what I'm saying? No, this would exactly happen to the Ife family. Now, this is a family of professionals that live in Enfield. This case, we're heading back to Enfield.
Enfield goes.
Oh, shit,
Enfield,
London?
Right? Eh?
Yeah.
The Enfield poltergeist.
Yeah.
You got the Enfield
Spooky
horror.
fucking place,
right?
boys.
Spooky place. Spooky fucking place. Now,
what time? What year is this?
I'm going to drop that a little later, right? We'll get into that. I'll tell you a little later. So the Ifes, you had Kenneth Ife Sr., 64, Josephine, the mom, 56. And then you had 6 brothers, Roy, Harry, Colin, Samuel, and Daniel, and of course, Kenneth Jr. Now, they lived in a ritzy part of Enfield, and this
posh.
family
posh.
Posh, yeah,
posh.
$1.5 million mansion, 7 bedrooms. You know, the kids they're mostly adult boys, right? So it's like Roy's 33, Harry's 32, Colin's 26, Sam's 20,
they all live at
Daniel's
home?
20, and Kenneth Ife is 26 and lives at home. Yes, they all live at home. Now,
So this is a modern family, then, what you're saying.
Yes. Well, Roy and Harry were both marketing executives, right? Like for like high paying firms. Kenneth has a doctor. He had a PhD in like something to do with minerals. Like he's not like a doctor of people, but he's like has some sort of like fucking, I'm guessing it's kind of like an oil man. Am I guessing? Like a rock doctor. But a family of professionals, like the 2 youngest
all
going
dudes,
to university.
living at home with their parents.
Yeah.
Burning through
all
Kleenex
balling.
boxes, I bet. Fuck.
Oh yeah.
Single dudes. Jesus.
Right.
Heathens.
But one day Kenneth wakes up and he was an IT consultant, very successful. This family is like well known. They're part of a church group, the Jesus Sanctuary Ministries in Southeast London, well known in the community. You know, no one had a bad thing to say about them. Now, one day Kenneth Jr. wakes up and he has to call in sick to work, and you know, he's at the house and he's kind of moping around, and he just starts saying that like, man, I have the sorest throat. Like my throat is so sore.
COVID.
It's just so bad. And, you know, they're like, well, don't get everyone else to go in your room, right? Like leave, like, what are you doing? Day 2 rolls around. He wakes up in the morning. He's like, man, something's really wrong with my throat. Like, I think I need to go see a doctor. So he goes to a doctor, gets checked out. Josephine brings him there. He gets checked out. They see how he's doing. Doctor's like, yeah, fucking run in the mill sore throat, go home, you know, little chicken soup for the soul, take a couple days and you're going to be on the mend. So now things start getting fucking weird because on day 3, Kenneth comes out of his room, and remember, his whole family's very religious, and he goes, there's a snake inside me. There's a snake coiling its way inside me. I can feel it.
There's a snake in my boot.
Yeah. And he just kind of walks back into his room and like comes out in his boxers and says this, and everyone's kind of like,
Just shake his fucking dick around his boxers. There's a snake in me.
It's a tapeworm hanging out.
And everyone's kind of like, all right, that's weird. So like Josephine checks them and they're like, oh, okay, like, you know what? You're a little warm, a little hot, like maybe you're running a fever, you know, just relax in bed. What do you need? We'll bring it to you. Then things progressively get even worse because Josephine says as he comes in one day, he's sitting there on his bed facing the wall,
sinning and spinning,
and he's arguing with himself in what she said is like 6 different voices. Now he was talking to himself as Kenneth, and then she said there were some other voices he was arguing with himself as that she could tell that were him. Like, you know, it's like, this is me arguing with myself. You know what I mean? Like she could tell there was some, like it was his voice, but then there was other voices that she said were not natural. Right. So she's kind of like, she's like, yo, like,
speaking in tongues.
Like, yeah. What's going on? So Kenneth Sr. actually like reaches out to his church, and they have Andrew W. I don't know how to say his last name.
W.
Okay. One of the insanest last names I've ever seen.
Try it. Just shoot from the hip. No, just shoot from the hip.
Dude, it's like 37.
I gotta hear you.
I had it up earlier and I just wrote my note, Andrew W. with a question mark. I should have had it for Dan. You're speaking in tongues saying his name.
Yeah, that's what basically. I'm saying. That's why I'm here. Let's go.
So he comes and they come and look at him and they're like, okay, well, you know, we'll pray for him. They're like, okay. So they pray with him and, you know, kind of sit around with him and pray. And this is like, you got to remember, this is like 4 days now. So from like sore throat 2 days to like fucking, there's a snake in me to like now like speaking in tongues on day 4. Like day 5, he is like legit like writhing in pain on his bed. He's complaining that there's a seed of the snake is in my stomach and it's hatching, right? And this thing is taking over, right? And so they're like, holy, like, so the family's like, they're like, hey, listen, everybody, we got to pray twice as hard, right? We got to pray twice as hard for this guy. And on day 6, he actually attacks his dad, bites him, like biting him.
He's becoming
scratching
the
at him. Yeah. So they like push him in his room, and then they're kind of like freaking out at this point because they're like, man, what is going on? And he comes out wearing just his boxers, holding his junk, and he's telling them, I'm going to cut off my penis. I'm going to cut it off. And so at this point, the family freaks out, and they're like, okay, well, we have to restrain him. So like all the brothers, at the order of the dad, handcuff him to the bed, right? And tie him down with cable straps. And then they make a decision that the dad says, like, we are going to have people in here with him around the clock praying for him, right? Praying for him to get better. So for 3 fucking days, they lock Kenneth in a room tied with someone watching him. And the brothers were instructed to use as much force as necessary to keep him in the bed, right? Because for fear of injury to himself and others. So they prayed for him for 3 days while he writhed and spoke tongues and then pleaded with them. Funny you should ask that, because on day 3, he starts complaining about dehydration and he has a seizure, and he had started to get breathing issues, and he stops breathing. So the family calls 999, which is the UK equivalent of 911. They rush to the scene, and you can imagine their shock when they come in to see this family of people all around the bed doing a resurrection prayer around Kenneth, who is strapped to the bed. And when they get to Kenneth is fucked up. He has what appears to be bite marks all over his body. He's got 60 wounds all over his body. Like, he looks like he's been fucking through a ringer. Every single man in the family has bite marks, scratches. Like, they're all have like fucking look like they've been in a fight. And they come and they're like, okay, well, yo, this is fucked up. We've never seen anything like this. What? Obviously, Kenneth is not raised from the resurrection prayer. They call the cops, right? They're like,
it's amazing that you, like, the way this story, not to interrupt, but you're like telling this story, and in my brain, I'm like, okay, obviously they're doing all these things to this man because as of right now, the highest ranking medical official they have in their town is probably the town barber, because this is 1840 fucking 2. But no, they have phones and they're calling 999.
We're starting to move up. We're starting to move. What? That's why I didn't want to tell you the time, because I like when you start to say this, you actually think it's way. And then as the story progresses, you're like, okay, well, mid 1800s. All right. By early 1900s. All right. That's where we're shooting.
We're at least in the 90s now.
The police show up and they're like, well, what happened? And they tell him, we've secured him to the bed for 3 days. We've been praying. And they're like, he died. You're all arrested.
He died?
You've all committed manslaughter.
Oh, fuck.
Right? So the entire family, the entire Ife family is arrested and charged with manslaughter. They're charged with, what's the one, I can't remember now, where it's like you're confining someone involuntary.
Unlawful confinement.
I can't remember the name of it.
Unlawful confinement?
Yeah. Unlawful confinement. And something like it's assault on like a vulnerable adult.
Yeah.
Right? Now, so this is like shocking to Enfield. This is fucking wild.
Well, you'd think like these medical professionals, these cops show up and be like, motherfucker, like this is a house full of learned people. Like,
yes.
Because they're all doctors
people.
and shit. Like, what the fuck are you thinking?
Yeah. And
this is crazy.
So the medical examiners take him and they've determined that his death is caused by cardiac arrest is what the official cause of death. Right. So they're brought up, and if anyone listening to the States, if you're listening to Canada, the UK has the exact same legal system we do. It's on common law based on precedent. So when you get charged with something like this, you can choose to have your trial by judge or jury, right? Jury of your peers. You get the choice, right? So there's times where it's strategic for people accused to pick a judge alone, because if you're a lot of times, if your defense is based on, let's say, skirting blurring the lines of the legal wording of laws. You want to go judge alone, because then a judge has to read it, and then they're like, maybe he's right about that, and if he's maybe right, I have to go on the presumption of innocence. So there is advantages to going judge alone. Now, there's advantages usually when you go with juries, and that's because you want to plead to 12 people. This is what I felt. I maybe did this, but this is why I did it, and have people sympathize with you. And now there's certain charges that people never do juries, such as like child sex crimes, because how do you convince 12 people what you did to get you? You know what I mean? The second they hear the charge, they have
your conceived notions.
It doesn't have to go to trial.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually not only is the defendant guilty, but we also vote that they be fucking hung.
Yeah,
we don't do that anymore.
What's the worst we can do?
Yeah, can we burn them alive? Is that an option?
So, in like one of the most wild turn events for me, this entire family elects to be tried by jury. Oh, so they're going to convince 12 people that they had their son's best interests at heart and performed an exorcism and failed. And their main argument was that they were unbelievably sad and stricken at the death of their son and brother, but ultimately they were happy because they saved his soul.
Hopefully get a religious jury.
Right? 12 people. So the trial lasted 2 weeks. Jury deliberated for 4 days. And remember, the jury is struck like you are looking. The reason they didn't go with first degree murder or anything like that, because first degree is planned. Manslaughter is like fucking you whoopsied. You whoopsied and killed someone. And it's like when I look at that, I'm like, yeah, you tried to do an exorcism, didn't work, and you whoopsied and killed someone. That's manslaughter, baby.
You still killed somebody.
You had him fucking strung up in the bed. That's confinement, baby.
It was God's will.
He was obviously in some sort of crisis, and he was vulnerable. Guilty, baby, right? Like when I look at that, it's an open and slam case. Prosecutor said that as much in the trial, and a jury of 12 found them innocent of all charges. They were convinced by the evidence given by all of these that they were scared enough at the sudden onset of whatever happened to Kenneth Ife that they believed that it was their best intentions to try to help him and saved his soul. And they found them innocent on all charges.
If you're gonna be fucking pleading to a group of your peers in any town to convince them of spooky shit, Enfield's the place.
Yeah,
Enfield's probably like, yeah, a lot of fucked up shit happens here.
I mean, Andrew, you're getting pretty close. Do you want to take a stab at when this happened?
I'd say late 80s.
Zell?
2002.
The trial concluded in 2019. 2019. This Kenneth Ife got sick in August 2016. It lasted for a week and he died. And the trial happened in 2019 and they were found innocent in 2019 of all charges.
Exorcisms are real.
Fucking God.
Right. And that's they like, to me, I'm like that. The UK and Canadian law works on precedent. So now if someone in Canada, if you believe that a spouse or someone was possessed and you unfortunately tried an exorcism,
do we use cases in the UK though? We use our own cases, I thought.
Well, it's still common law, so we can use our own. But you can
pull around the world then, because there's a lot of places that use the common law.
Yeah, you could, but it's easier in these situations, like where it's
the common law is lacking fucking common sense here, boys.
Because now people could say like
crazy,
but the thing is, I was like, everything's sealed. I have some fucking back channel alleys of way to look up these cases, and I couldn't find fucking nothing on it. Everything's sealed, and I was like, what did this jury of 12 see?
Braden is actually a secret hacker, if you didn't know.
Yeah,
he's really good at computers. He just never lets it on.
No. And I'm just boggled at what did these 12 see where they were so convinced that this entire family was to be found in.
They probably have a recording. They have a recording of the exorcism, and they're like, they did it right. They're trying their best. Here's what do we call it? The prayer to Saint Michael. Yeah, prayer to Saint Michael, the archangel. They did it perfectly. They did it all right. Yeah, they good religious people. Yeah, they did their best. Innocent.
That's wild to me, because especially in this day and age where I'd imagine, I could be completely wrong, but I'd imagine like this is
probably an all-time high for like atheism. And you have this group of these jurors and be like, what
or at least
fuck?
What's the one where you are open to believing but don't believe? Agnostic.
Agnostic.
100% that.
Like the negligence to be like, listen, hey, you know what? I understand that these people maybe thought they were doing the right thing, but the negligence that they practiced, not one of them thought to call a fucking doctor and think that maybe their brother's suffering from some type of fucking psychosis.
When one of the
this
arguments,
is crazy.
One of the arguments was that all this happened so fast, and that Kenneth Jr. had seen a doctor, and the doctor was like, yeah, just go home, chill out. Like that was what he was told. So then but I was like, going to the doctor and be like, I have a sore throat, and going to the doctor and be like, there's a snake in my throat is two different things.
Did they like when they did the autopsy and everything, obviously he died of cardiac arrest.
There was no snake in his throat.
We all die from cardiac arrest. Yeah. Right? Like we all do. What else was like, no ideas. Like he wasn't septic. He didn't have any type of massive infections. He didn't have a tumor in his brain.
He was complaining with dehydration, but like he wasn't, that the dehydration was not the cause of death. The cause of death is just cardiac arrest. I
wonder, he was in some type of psychosis, 100%.
Maybe, right? Or maybe he was possessed. Sure. And it's like a lot of people, the prosecution pointed, because this family, I believe, is from Nigeria. And the prosecution tried to paint them in this light of that they had extreme religious beliefs and association with occults and secret societies, and like this passion of that kind of stuff led them to do this. And the defense basically like disproved that by like, you know, calling upon the church congregation and people in the community and be like, these people are like, their religious beliefs are like Christian, which is like a widespread belief. Like it's nothing out of the mill. Now there is one theory that I kind of liked, is that the entire house was possessed.
Oh, maybe they were the possessed ones.
Right? Everyone was possessed in that house. There was something in there that pushed them to do this, because it seems so like a loss of logic almost, right?
100%. Well, you know, it's funny that you say that, like a loss of logic, but at the same time, like, because I was thinking about this the other day. So it's like, these people are so devout in believing in Jesus Christ and God and the whole, like they took that book is like, that is 100% true. This is how we live our life. We dedicate our life to it, which is fine. You know, everybody has their thing. But at the same time, so if you're that devout and you believe all that, you're definitely going to be that devout about believing about the demons and shit too. And the devil, like that's all
part of it.
You know what I mean? Like that's all part of it. So of course these people believe that he's possessed, because this book, like this guy that's walking on water says that there's also people who get possessed and believe in demons. Like, of course.
And the sudden onset, I mean, 26 years old, sometimes in like early 20s, that kind of stuff really kicks off. But like 26 years old, and within like 5-6 days, you were gone from sore throat to like fucking threatening to cut off your wiener and biting your dad. That's crazy.
But that's what leads me to believe he's got some type of like fucking infection. Maybe he's got like a fucking oh my God, why am I spacing so hard? Like a
tumor,
chronic encephalitis and
swelling of the brain or spinal column, right? Or something. Yeah, like a meningitis, or you know, like which causes you to go into delusions and go crazy. Like, I wonder, do they even like check his temperature? Like, how much medical treatment do they even do?
You know, they did the old back of the hand.
Oh, he feels a little warm. Right? A little warm. He's a little warm, but not warm enough. He's definitely possessed.
It's just weird to think this is just 4 years ago.
I'm blown the fuck away.
When I read that, I was like, innocent on all those charges. I was like, that seems like a fucking slam. Like they didn't get nothing. Like they didn't get a charge with a lesser account.
That's a mummer's farce. That's what it is.
Holy.
Yeah. What's less than manslaughter?
Aggravated assault?
Like negligence causing death or something? But it's not
death. Yeah, sure.
So anything. Something that maybe not gave him jail time, but like at least something.
That even the confinement that they had him strapped to the bed and one of the things, this is purely on Reddit, so I didn't really lean into it, but like the handcuffs he had pulled so tight that he had begun to deglove his hands.
Oh my God. That's
Like
so
they were digging in
fucked
so
up.
tight that he was pulling so hard that he was being, but that was all on Reddit. Like, so I didn't lean on those because I couldn't find anything that said that. So it was like, that could just be an anonymous poster. So, take that with huge grains of salt. But, I mean, fuck, man, it's a scary thing to think that something like that could happen and your own family could strap you to a bed, or you have the belief that you have to do this to someone. Like it's scary. I'm like, someone in that house was possessed. To be honest, I don't know who.
See, they're possessed by stupidity. Like, this is fucking wild. Why did it take you so long to call? Like, if your first step is to go from like taking him to his fucking family doctor and then tying him down and then calling fucking 911. It's like, let's follow up. Let's take him to the hospital. Let's get a fucking CT scan. Let's get some blood work. Let's get to the bottom of what the fuck is going on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. Why?
Scary.
Like, what's the point? So, say it's a demon. It's from another world, and it's trying. It's trying to get to our world by has to take over a host first. I guess, right? Is that kind of how the thought is? Like, it takes over this host.
Yeah.
Steals the life energy of this host and then becomes part of our world. Like, that's what it's trying to do. Like, or why is it trying to take
Just
over a body
causing
just to cause harm, kill it,
evil.
and then back it goes?
Yeah. Just brazen hell.
Well, it makes me think about the whole place of Enfield, right? Like now, like we've obviously done some other case files about the area, like, and I wonder if there's just like, the Enfield poltergeist and stuff, like the horror, like, is there just something in that area? Is there something in that area that fucking, like kind of fucks with the minds, right?
There's a Hellgate there.
Yeah, maybe.
The veil is
some
thin.
frequency-based shit. Creepy. It's creepy as hell, man. 6 days, you go from totally normal, going to your job, like excelling at your job, to then 9 days later, dead, strapped to a bed because your fucking snakes are growing inside you.
The other thing too, like, well, I guess because he died with, they strapped him down and he died within a week.
He died in 3 days.
Or 3 days. Like, I'm wondering if, it's tough for 3 days, but I would have meant like maybe he got into fucking street drugs.
He wasn't eating. He wasn't eating leading up to, like,
Why?
he stopped eating when he was sick.
Oh,
so
just
like
'cause
they
his throat
said
was
he was
sore.
kind of like getting, you get a sore throat.
Hey,
And
hypoglycemia causes crazy shit, boys.
my first thought was a real bad bout of the man cold. Right?
You just can't get up.
We've all been there.
Wait a sec. This was in 2019?
Yeah.
He's
COVID, baby.
COVID came
Maybe
from a different realm through demonic possession.
Maybe brain swelling.
He infected someone of his family who flew to China just right after that. They started it all there.
Makes sense.
We keep tracing it back farther.
Yeah.
Maybe COVID's just been around for way longer.
Since the dawn of time.
Just transformed.
Get
So
released from an ancient tomb somewhere.
Yeah. When did they open Akhenaten's tomb or whatever?
Gotta be 2019.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
creeping
when they
death.
collided.
They opened some-
I'm sure they
They did.
collided some hydrogen atoms.
Yeah.
The
Something
Hadron Collider at that time.
Yeah.
That's a,
You heard it here first.
that's a crazy.
The new COVID theory.
That's a
no lab leaks, ancient tomb leaks. Okay.
What was in that they're in that bat cave or whatever they found, right? Maybe there was something in there.
Yeah.
Some ancient dragon
Batman.
emperor.
Ancient guano.
cool.
Guano?
Yeah. Guano.
Guano. Bat. Is that what it is? Guano? Bat shit?
Guano. Yeah.
People
I don't
eat
know.
it.
Ace Ventura, Pet Detective 2. Talk about it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's a wild case.
That's mine.
That's a wild case.
Yeah, it's just that it's so recent. I was just like, when I read it, I was like, holy fuck, 29. I was like, this sounds like 1800s, then 1900s, then the mid 1900s. Then you're like, this happened just recently. Like,
Well, I was going to say, like, are they going to leech them? Like, what are they going to do to treat them?
Yeah.
And then
quite wild.
it's fucked. It's fucked.
Well, should we take a break before the next one, or we want to get right into it?
Let's take a short break. We'll just jump right back into it after a quick
We'll be
break.
right back. We're back. All right. We're talking exorcisms.
We had to go release the snakes
And
inside our bellies.
exercise a demon
Yeah.
twice a day,
Drain
every
the
day.
snake, as we say.
All right. You ready to get into another one?
Yeah, let's hear it.
You want another one?
Yeah.
So this is the story of Ed and Marcia Becker. Happy couple. Everything's going well. Expecting their first child. When Ed went to pay his rent, he was unfortunately informed by his landlady that there were a strict no pets, and no babies policy at their building. Imagine that.
No babies?
Babies, yeah.
I don't think that's legal.
So they unfortunately had to move. A month into the search, Ed found a small 2-apartment building in the city. He met the realtor. No sooner had they walked into the house than an elderly lady named Myra, who resided in the first 4 flats, screamed and swore at them, telling them they'll never own this house. Myra
Buddy,
was
this sounds like fucking me in 2023.
Myra was the last remaining member of a family who had owned, built, and occupied the house from the beginning. Without much in the way of options and with assurances from the realtor that Myra would be out of the house on the day of the closing, Ed agreed to purchase the house. Mm-hmm. As they unpacked in their new home, Marcia brought her pride and joy, a beautiful glass candy dish, to the dining room table and placed it in the center. She turned around to get the lace runner to put underneath it. When Marcia turned back, the candy dish was sitting at the table's edge on the other side from her. A few days later, as they sat at the table eating dinner, they overheard the overhead light began to flicker in an odd rhythm. It eventually quit, but Marcia was very unsettled. A month or so after the move, Ed called home to see how things were going. The phone was busy. A few hours later, he tried to call again, but it was still busy. He never got through all day. He was growing angry, trying to figure out who Marcia could be talking to on the phone all day. Well, you know, women and phones, right?
Yeah.
Women be talking. They be talking.
Yeah. Hands be clucking.
When he got home, Marcia was bewildered. She walked over to the table and they both found the phone had been off the hook all day. Something insisted upon taking the phone off the hook. Dishes had been flying out of cabinets, crashing on the floor into pieces. Marcia was sure they were being haunted. Ed, however, was skeptical. Still, they moved forward with the plans to rent out the first floor flat. The first people to answer the ad were Dan and Diane Wood. Marcia and Diane became fast friends. Not thinking the first floor apartment could possibly be haunted, Ed called the next day and told them, and they moved in. The odd things began slowly with a simple swinging of the chandelier. Things began turning on after when Marcia was visiting the downstairs. Diane had put her baby into a walker. The baby's feet couldn't reach the floor. When the women weren't looking, the walker began moving. Fuck. Anything with babies, right? Anything with babies.
Yeah,
freaks me out. Marcia catches sight of the walker moving towards the basement stairs. Marcia ran and caught the walker in midair. Marcia's an athlete. Marcia had no way of knowing how to tell them that the house was haunted. With Marcia's urging, Ed began investigating the basement. He found bullets in jars, which was pretty disturbing. Not only that, he also ended up finding a hidden door.
Oh, no. Don't open it.
Don't open it. When he went through the door, Ed found boxes upon boxes of Pinot.
Oh, fucking score!
Right? Just found somebody's whack shack.
Okay.
It's like, this isn't so bad. But when he did a little bit of investigating, this is where things get pretty fucking weird for me. All these pornographic images were altered. They were either decapitated,
that's creepy.
had body parts missing, had their eyes poked out, and had fucking property of Ben written on them.
All right, that's a cause.
Okay,
some
that's a little
cause for
different.
It's a
concern.
bit fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is a secret he ends up keeping from his wife because he didn't want to fucking freak her out any more than she was already freaked out, right? Marcia was then accosted in the bathtub one afternoon and just lost it. Whatever it was that touched her, that was enough. She was out. So she ended up taking the baby and going to live with her parents for a little bit. Ed went to visit his neighbor, Walter. Walter had lived there for at least 40 years. And if anyone would know, he would know what's been going on in that house, obviously, because he's been there for 40 years. Walter explained that Ben, whose hideaway Ed had found, was very much a dominant male. Ben had also died of a massive coronary in the bathtub.
Ooh.
Right, where his wife was being accosted by imaginary hands. Imagine that. What movie is that where the fucking hand comes up from the bathtub water?
Oh,
Right?
It's not The Ring, but it's The Grudge.
It's like, maybe it's The Grudge.
One night, yeah, could be.
Maybe. I don't know.
One night, Ed and Marcia heard a man and a woman violently fighting. They thought it was Dan and Diane, their tenants, but Ed kept Marcia from intervening. It wasn't their business. The fighting sounded night after night. Ed thought it was coming from the basement. Dan and Diane also heard it, but they thought it was actually Ed and Marcia, which obviously it wasn't. One night, Ed finally stuck his head out the apartment door and the sound stopped. There was nothing there. Walter had told Ed about Ben's wife, Amelia. Their marriage was filled with arguments and fighting, including violence. In despair, Amelia had hung herself in the basement. So that's creepy old Ben clipping up his fucking Playboys and whacking it to amputee Pino, So his wife ended up hanging herself in the basement. By this point, Diane no longer wanted to live there at all. She chose to leave permanently with the baby and stay with her mother. Alone, Dan was sleeping when he felt a woman laying on top of him, holding and embracing him. It wasn't a fantasy. Dan was convinced a spirit was looking down on him, looking for a companion. The house was changing Marcia. She was losing her jovial personality, slipping into something of a depression. The same was happening to Diane. Ed thought the house was driving them insane. Diane finally decided that she would leave as well. During dinner one night, what the fuck was that?
What is that?
Something spooky.
Bizzle smacking something?
I don't know. But
something's in here.
It sounded like someone was fucking touching a mic.
Yeah. During the dinner one night, the door to the kitchen upstairs opened angrily. Ed grabbed a heavy string and tried to shut the door. The door kept moving as though someone was trying to get in. Ed decided to harass the spirit, calling Ben an old pervert and daring him. Myra's statement that they would never really own the house came back to haunt Ed. Marcia was convinced someone had been up to something. Looking through the yellow pages, Ed found a professional psychic named Joe DeLuz, and Joe would bring along a professional exorcist to do an exorcism in the house. He told NBC, and NBC wanted to film it.
Oh,
Ed and Marcia decided to go ahead with it.
This is I do know this. This is the I do know this one. This is the first televised exorcism.
It is the first televised.
Oh shit!
And like something to not to get too crazy, like off topic. Like when you think about it, this happened about 2 years before The Exorcist came out, right? So exorcisms weren't huge. And then something really important to keep in mind too, at this time, if NBC is picking this up, in the 70s, there was like fucking 3 channels.
Yeah.
Like this is huge. Right? Like there's nothing really else going to be on TV. Like this is fucking huge publicity for the situation. The day of the exorcism came. The Reverend insisted that they all hold crucifixes. Ed hoped that they were protected. As the Reverend began the incantation, Joe placed himself in a trance. There was movement in his hands. NBC's sound man picked up sounds that none of them could hear. The Reverend thrust his crucifix at Joe, and a gust of wind blew through the house. The sounds of birds became overwhelming. Hundreds of birds circled the house, screaming at the same time. The Reverend grew fierce in his incantation. Finally, just as suddenly as it had began, it stopped. The birds were gone. The wind stopped. The Reverend declared, "I have exorcised the demons. This house is clear." Dan was compelled to move out. He took off and never returned. Fuck. Ed's sister April had seen the exorcism and badgered her brother until he allowed her to move in. Marcia was concerned over how much April seemed to think it was a game. One night, Ed's sister April had a couple friends over and they were using a Ouija board. Something was still there. The planchette moved on its own, spelling out the name Henry. Ed flipped out. He ripped the Ouija board apart and threatened to kick his sister out.
Bringing this Hasbro shit in here.
Yeah, this isn't even authentic. April confided to Marcia that her piano was playing by itself.
Just a single note over and over. She thought she could make the chandelier move just by looking at it. April thought the basement door could open on its own. The amount of control and energy April was giving the spirit scared Marcia to death. That night, it all started all over again, this time escalating. Marcia told Ed that what was happening to April. Ed investigated again, stating that, starting with Walter. Walter told him that Henry was deformed and that the family kept him in the house. So they didn't get the last demon.
The demon lives.
The demon lives.
Yeah, I remember us talking about that when we briefly mentioned it before about the first exorcism, because it's like crazy, because it's like for TV, how would you fucking set up those fucking, you know what I mean? You'd have to have a lot of people involved to set up those, like the wind and the fucking birds and shit getting picked up. Like,
you can watch clips from it. Like they had a whole segment on it, but I don't think that footage exists anymore. But there is like little pieces of it that you can watch on YouTube.
You'd have to like go to like the actual archive of that place and dig through like, but yeah, it's probably not.
Apparently it doesn't exist anymore.
Been erased from history. Someone has it.
Yeah.
Just wait. Someone's going to make a
probably
book.
in the Vatican archives. Right?
That's because at that time, so what do you say, 72?
I think
early 70s.
Yeah,
I know it was the early 70s. It was right before The Exorcist came out.
Like still especially America, still very much religious. Thought of that kind of stuff on TV. Like when The Exorcist came out a couple years after that, or a year after that. Like big deal, like religious protests and people boycotting it because it's the devil's
1971.
Work. There you go.
1971, yeah.
Early on.
Yeah.
It's a fucking satanic panic.
That fucking, the Wax Shack threw me off a bit.
Yeah, that's
fucking creepy
fucking
as fuck,
weird,
dude.
man.
That's
weird.
That's some creepy shit, man.
That's fucking weird, dude.
Like I get it. Like you, like, I mean, you probably
some
look
weird
through magazines all the time, and then I'm like,
weird.
You gotta I'm like, come on. It's creepy. Why you're writing your name on the property of
property of Ed,
property of Ben? All these magazines.
Your Ben's.
Yeah, these are Ben's magazines.
Honestly, there's nothing scarier though than like the horror movies where like The Conjuring, where you open up the closet and there's a fake wall and then leads down the staircase and the wind ominously blows up that stairwell.
I don't know. I've never seen it.
That's terrifying, man.
It's super.
I would puke if I watched that shit.
Andrew, imagine this. Imagine you bought a new house. You got a building inspection, all the stuff. You got the building plans. You could move in. Your kids are playing. One knocks something over in the walk-in closet. A secret door. Secret door pops.
Yeah, and I go down the steps from that fucking secret door, and I'll find a bunch of piles of fucking dill pickle spits that these shitty little slackers who were supposed to be building my house have been hiding in the panic room eating spits.
Instead of building a house, they built a secret room so they didn't have to work.
Yeah. That is something we'd probably do.
That sounds very familiar.
Put a lot of work in at the beginning, and then just
weeks worth of work, and you sit there for a year. And
then you play hockey with your tape measure.
Yeah,
I'm Jerome McGinley.
Tape hockey.
Yeah, that's
like the first one that gained notoriety for worldwide attention, which is cool. And it's like you had these people that like, you know, what was the guy's name?
Edwin Becker?
No, not him. The Lowe's guy, the guy who he contacted, the
Joe DeLuz.
Joe DeLuz. Like for him, like there is some weirdness to him where I'm like, okay, like you're gonna contact the like Exorcist and you're gonna get this on the local news. Like I wonder if he was hoping there was gonna be like a Ghostbusters situation and like this was going to like really drum up business for him. Right? Like he's like, oh yeah, fucking Joe DeLuz.
Who you gonna call? Joe DeLuz.
But that just the fucking jerk shack in the house. I mean, that'd be terrifying. It's gross. Like it's gross, but at the same time, you're like, this is fucked up.
But you don't even want to think about like, you know, obviously a lot of our houses aren't brand new. We didn't build these houses. People have been jerking in your house before you lived there.
Yeah.
Spooky. Don't like it.
Every hotel room you've been in,
1940s, man.
Yeah.
I got to think about some guy in the mid-30s in 1940 whacking it in my house to his imagination. That's disgusting, man. What kind of sex magic was he conjuring in there?
Just think I wasn't even using Sears catalogs. Like, what a weirdo.
Nothing.
Yeah, he was using newspapers with mannequin pictures.
He was probably looking at some fucking bark and like squinting his eyes, using his imagination. It's
nice
disgusting.
curves.
Yeah, I hate it.
That's a weird thought. Everywhere you've been, someone's been jerking it there.
Somebody's been drinking
it's disgusting.
everywhere.
Humans are gross, man. We all.
It's assumed when you come to Island Studios. It's assumed.
Well, where did you pick that studio up from? Just
Where did I pick it up?
Yeah, think of who had it before you. So,
A job site.
Oh.
I don't know what kind of job site, but it was dirty
job site.
It's seen. If those walls could speak.
Yeah.
I mean, like, at least that's basically what you got everything hanging on. You know, silly putty, hey? Or sticky tack.
Yeah.
It comes off, little heat gun, falls right off.
Yeah.
No tax needed.
Zell, what you got for us?
All right. We got to go with maybe the most famous exorcism of all time. The actress' name was Linda Blair. Ooh. No, I am talking about The Exorcist, the movie, but I'm also talking about the events, the real world events that inspired first the book and then the movie adaptation. Ooh. So this is the exorcism of Roland Doe. Some people also call him Roland Doe, a.k.a. Robbie Meinham or Ronald Hunkler, depending which version of the internet you go to.
What a fucking name, Hunkler.
Hunkler. So let's go with Hunkler. The exorcism of Ron Hunkler. So everyone's seen The Exorcist, or at least you know The Exorcist, with the head spinning around, projectile vomiting, the priest chanting. Yeah. All this is based on a real event, and that real event was Roland. It begins in the 1940s, and it's like this little. The exact town is hard to pin down because this all comes from a 1940s article in like the DC Times or something, like a newspaper that's the very first of it. But it's in DC, and this guy, he has a beloved Aunt Harriet who tragically passes away. She was a spiritual medium. She taught him how to play early versions of the Ouija board before it was actually called the Ouija board.
Early versions, which was Demon Board.
Demon board, exactly.
There was no safeguards in place. Make sure it's closed.
So she passes away, and shortly after Harriet's death, Ronald, he begins to like experience, strange things, scratching sounds when he's trying to sleep, floors and walls creaking and seeming to move while he's lying there trying to sleep. He's by himself. And then seemingly like water, he hears like water dripping and pipes creaking, and he's freaked out. So he tells his family, and they don't really believe him at first, but then his mattress and stuff, his bed starts shaking.
Magically just gets peed on.
It's wet. Soaking wet. Well, I had the same demons all
It's an elaborate story to cover up his bedwetting.
I had the same demons in my house. It's crazy.
It wasn't me, I swear. Anyways, this goes on for a while, and finally he starts to he's mentally ill. His family's worried about him, so they contact the local doctors and psychiatrists. They can't seem to tell him anything except just rest and relax, and
reduce your water intake before bed.
Yeah, just relax. He's fine. He's not that far of it. They can't figure it out. So then they go to their local Lutheran minister. He does some prayers. He thinks that something's wrong, but they don't. The Lutheran, I guess, they don't have exorcisms. So he recommends you go to the Jesuits, Catholics. So the local priest, E. Albert Hughes, he's on the case, and he thinks that this boy is being possessed slowly and more powerfully every day. So he goes to his superiors, and he requests to do an exorcism.
I just want to add one thing, because I did read about this one when I was researching ones to do. Was there not a part where they're like, hey, listen, in order for us to really fucking understand what's going on here, we would prefer to have your son sleep over at the church by himself, to be observed for one night.
Not the version I read, but you could have read a version of that.
Pretty sure I read that, because I remember being like, ugh. So it begins.
So it starts at his house, but in order to he's writhing and he's writhing in pain and kicking and screaming. So they strap him to the bed. And
this isn't at the church, right?
No, this is at his house. This is at his
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They take him to the church. Sure. They strap him to the bed. So he begins the exorcism, but he's interrupted when Ronald, in his writhing, he grabs the mattress and with some type of like extreme strength, rips the mattress and a piece of the spring and slashes the priest in the shoulder. Cuts him. So they stop the exorcism.
It's more badass than tearing a phone book in half.
Fuck yeah.
Woo.
So he leaves the exorcism unfinished. So whatever he started,
those old springs too, like springs back in the day, like springs nowadays, I'd be like, oh yeah,
that priest might have died.
Apart.
That was before. Yeah. He got tetanus for sure. He's probably dead.
100%. Yeah.
So the exorcism fails or is incomplete. The days go on, and now he starts getting the scratches. Seemingly out of nowhere, scratches, deep gashes, seemingly out of nowhere. Like he's not doing it. They're watching him. They almost see them like appear out of the blue. Just his skin all of a sudden is red, scratched. And then one day, Lewis is imprinted on his body in red. Like someone wrote Lewis. So obviously, the Hunklers, they have relatives that live in St. Louis. So they think maybe this is a sign we should take him to St. Louis.
Dude, I would go ahead and say that that is like the last place you should go. Like if the demon's carving that in, I'm like, that's where the demon wants you to go.
Yeah, don't go there.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Anywhere but St. Louis.
So the Hunklers had relatives there. His mother was from there, so they take him to St. Louis to bring the family together to help save their son. They had a cousin who was attending the St. Louis University, and he puts them in touch with Father Walter H. Halloran and Reverend William Bowdrin. And after consulting the president of the university, this is a Jesuit university, I believe. These two Jesuit priests agreed to perform another exorcism. This time, this might be what you think. This is like it's the church's, it's like one of their like a hospice house, like where they put outpatients or whatever. So they have
hospice house.
Well, it's like a house where you're in the hospital, they take you, but like it's not part of the hospital.
Let you die.
No, but like that type of style, like it's on like it's on the property, but it's separate from the hospital.
Okay.
So this house is empty. He's the only patient in it. So they start this exorcism. So they have the two men, several assistants, and it starts in early March. And the same thing, every time they start chanting, he starts writhing and twitching and screaming in tongues and that guttural like 6-tone voice, like that one Braden's talking about, where they say like he's seemingly not himself. He's speaking in tongues, languages he doesn't know. And then they noticed during the day he would calm right down, almost be just a shell of himself, but not violent. And as soon as the sun went down, he seemed to go demonic.
Jesus.
And this happened this went on for like 2 weeks. Anytime they brought out a cross or holy water or anything, they could feel like a force from this creature. It was pretty much referred to as a creature now. It wasn't human. And at this point, a huge X forms on his chest. And the priests seem to signal, or they think to themselves that this must mean this being is possessed by 10 demons of hell.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean.
Right?
Yeah, the X gonna give it to you. X Roman
X gonna give 10. It to
you. Yeah.
They see like pitchfork style like arrows and stuff going down his leg. He's getting like these red tattoos of blood seemingly out of nowhere.
Bizarre.
And
is he being monitored the whole time?
And he's strapped down, right? He's strapped down.
Wow. At night when they perform the exorcism, they strap him. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's like,
they have assistants watching him all the time. The priests come in at night, try and perform the exorcism. And they did this for like 20 days.
Wow.
And that's when he pissed the bed an ungodly amount. And this was the final straw for his parents.
Knew it was all about bedwetting. I fucking told you.
So now they check him into a different hospital for more serious treatment. But on April 18th, so he started in early March, on April 18th, they considered a miracle. It was Easter Day, and he awoke with seizures, and he yelled at the priests who were still there. So the priests have kind of followed him to this. They're out of like the Jesuit hospital into like a real hospital, but the priests are still checking in on him. And he pretty much screams out that Satan would always be with them forever. Pretty much saying like, Satan has me. So that's when they pretty much, they're performing like kind of like it's not like a baptism because it's like what do you call it? Like christen? They have like the whole thing. Christening. They bring out all the gadgets once again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what do you find?
Incense.
You got all the beads.
Holy water. Yeah.
And at 10:45 that night, in one final desperate exorcism, pretty much, they invoke Saint Michael. And when they invoked Saint Michael, and 7 minutes later, when he came out of his trance, Ronald said, "He's gone." He just woke up, took a breath, opened his eyes, and went, "He's gone."
Oh yeah.
And then he recounted how he had had visions of this epic battle between Saint Michael, like vanquishing Satan on the battlefield with a flaming sword.
Yeah, it's badass.
It's fucking balling, dude. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, that's cool, man.
So that was the inspiration for the book, The Exorcist.
And you see a lot of parallels even between that one and the one I talked about, the Kenneth Ife one, like of the strapping to the bed. Like there is parallels there, right? It's kind of interesting, but like obviously prayers, they obviously weren't praying enough. It's crazy that Roland just snaps out of it.
It's but it's 2 months of exorcism finally broke through.
It kind of, a lot of times too, the way that they have to strap these people down and these bizarre injuries that they have and the puke, it's like a lot of this correlate with seizures.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the involuntary twitching and moving and bizarre behavior.
Well, except the fucking
do seizures only happen after the sun goes down?
But no, that's interesting. But a lot of times, like you have bizarre injuries, right? And you could just have a fucking injury from thrashing around on this bed that makes it like looks like an X. And like these people are going to see what they want to see.
Sure.
Right? Like all these people are devout followers of God. So they obviously believe in demonic, possession and shit like that. So they're going to look for excuses. They're going to look for these signs and attribute it to that, in my opinion.
But he did get better, right? Like what was that? He didn't do anything other than prayer.
Well, maybe he had some type of infection or something like that, right? We don't know.
Because at this time he was in a medical hospital now, even though the priests were still visiting him. So maybe
during the entire time they're treating him, IVs.
He's all of a sudden they're like, okay, we have exorcised the demon, and here's also your prescription of anticonvulsants. Have a good day, sir.
And obviously, there's a few liberties that the writer took from this case. Obviously, he didn't spin his head right around because he'd be dead. He didn't seemingly float off the mattress. But the parallels are there. The long multi-night exorcism. Also didn't say he might have. I don't know. He might have propositioned the priest for a little sexual favors. I'm not sure. It doesn't say. He probably didn't masturbate with a bloody cross.
I feel like that's where like they took inspiration from that, but it was the opposite. It was the priest is probably in there, and people walk in being like, "What the fuck?" And he's like, "Hey, he asked me." Like that's just he's asking me.
Power of Christ compels you.
Power of Christ compels you. I don't know.
Doing that person sex magic.
I don't know. It's tough for me with these exorcisms. Like I think I have no idea if there's a higher power or not. I don't know. I'm open to it, but I just feel like a lot of times these people want to believe in these situations because it validates their beliefs, right? Like, yes, this person could be consumed by a demon because God is real and this type of stuff is real, right? Like, and
you could really just go back and go back a couple thousand years, and when people get an illness, it's a demon, right? So that's where it starts, 100%. Right? It's, you have this illness, you have this swelling of the brain you can't see. Okay, why is this person sick out of nowhere? Like, what's going on? There's no x-rays, CAT scans, you have no idea what's going on. 3 days later, this person's dead. They were possessed by a demon, taken over, and sent to hell.
Well, and like you got to think like people suffered from these ailments, you know, from all time. Like people dealt with psychological events all the time. People went into psychosis and stuff like that. And then what else would you attribute to that to? Oh, this person's just fucking crazy all out of nowhere. Like this is so bizarre. Or if you watch, like, I know Braden's seen somebody have a seizure in real life, but have you, Braden, like an actual like tonic-clonic grand mal seizure?
Full on fucking
body's completely contorted, just like
it was fucked up. It was hard to watch.
It's very hard to watch, and it's just like they explain in the Exorcism. Like remember Exorcism Emily Rose, where her body's all contorted and stuff. It's like the only time I've ever seen people's bodies in those type of positions were during grand mal seizures, or sometimes people will do down and like.
Because their whole nervous system is overstimulated, right? So it's like contracts all your muscles.
I could definitely see why people would think people are floating, because like the girl I saw have a seizure, she was shaking so hard that she was like moving across the floor. Yeah, like she was like kind of like gliding across the floor as she shook. Like it was fucking weird. And then like did huge violent contortions. Yeah. Huge ones. Like I was
super
just like,
unsettling
oh my goodness. And then she just fucking stopped. And then just that really like exasperated fucking demon breathing.
Well, and then another thing too that
I was like, holy Jesus.
Correlates with Zell's story is what do people do a lot of times while they're seizing? They become incontinent.
And then, right? and then they wake up violent.
And they wake up and they're in it's a postictal state, right? Where they're basically when it's like you reset the computer, and they're just super confused and scared because they don't know where the fuck they are. And a lot of times they're aggressive.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, makes you wonder. I have no idea why we'd be pretending like we don't know what those things are in 2019, though. Guy's definitely got a snake in his body and we got to kill him. Have to.
I mean, if anyone's got more info on those, please fucking let us know.
And I'm open to it. I'm not saying I'm not, but there's so many striking similarities.
There is, and then there's some not, because like it's like you can explain so much with that, and then there's always that avenue of like, well, like the fucking pitchforks getting carved into you, like that kind of stuff. It's like
you're looking for that type of shit though. Like you see these injuries on their body, and you're like, well, I don't know how he got that. Well, he probably got it when he was contorting around in the bed, and that's what this kind of looks like. It's like looking up at the fucking sky when you're looking at clouds, being like, oh, that's Elvis for sure. You know what I mean? Like,
well, I don't know. Just like if you believe in exorcisms, let's just say it's magic. It is a form of magic. It's incantations that are casting some type of force at this being and expelling a evil force. It's magic. So if you believe in exorcisms,
maybe they're missing the sex part.
Believe in magic.
Maybe they're missing the sex part. We learned that from Jack Parsons. You need a little sex.
Yeah,
in
those couple seconds of orgasm, you can cast some very, very powerful spells. Very powerful.
Sure.
That's fucking exorcism terrifying, man. They're fucking terrifying.
It's just as a human concept of like, oh shit, this guy has got some bad shit in him. Let's pin him down and chant at him all month, nonstop
until he dies.
Until he dies.
Well, like I said, like they're still happening to this day. They're still happening, and like very recently, it's still happening. So it's what's going on, what's with them, we don't know. We're not there, so we're only listening to secondhand accounts. But like, let us know what you think. What do you think about exorcisms? Right? What do you think about those cases? Have you looked into them, or ones that we should be looking into that we haven't heard of? Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Shoot us messages. alientheorists@gmail.com.
Oh, yeah.
I know we didn't talk about a theory of the week, but I got one.
Sure.
Because I got called out big time. So I got to give a buddy of the show.
To yourself.
I got to give it to a buddy of the show, old Nick Pascuzzo, theory of the week. He listened to the last episode where I was talking about him not texting me, then not returning my text. And I said, you better be dead. And he listens to the show. Huge fan of the show. Huge friend of the show. He called me out. He was like, dude, I messaged you more than you messaged me. And I was like, damn, he's right. And I was like, fuck.
Did you go check your history of messages?
Yeah, I had to scroll through. I was like, damn it. It's like 2-1. Fuck. He's right. It's me. I'm the asshole. So Nick Piscuzzo, old friend, good friend, friend of the show. You're a Theory of the Week.
He's also, has he been on an episode? He was definitely on After Hours.
so.
I don't know if he was on a main episode or not.
I don't think he was on a main show because he said he was like, it only took 8 years for me to get a mention. Oh, now you're Theater of the Week, big guy. All right.
Yeah, you got to move back to Kelowna and you can get on more.
Yeah. We got if you're not on our Patreon, get on Patreon. We got tons of bonus stuff. If you like, we got a confidential about the Van Meter monster. That might interest you. Fucking mining town digs deep. Allegedly awakens some sort of fucking beast that terrorizes the town so much so that they believe that the only way forward is to blow up the mine. That is basically the breadwinner for the town. They blow it up and seal the mine to trap this monster in there. We do a confidential on patreon.com. You can go get that for as little as $5 a month. You get access to all our case files, After Hours, Dungeons and Dragons, all our bonus content. You can be like these beauties that Zell's about to name off.
Hell yeah.
Just joined.
You got to go to alientheorists.com, hit that support tab, and be like these beauties. We got Bazooka Butt Joe, Split Hair Chavez, Bulkhead JJ, Justin Woodland, Javier Hernandez, Dan. He's sponsoring the show from Thailand. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dan.
Courtney
Yeah,
White,
thanks,
Caton Johnson, and Matthew Hedrolowitz. Thank you very much for supporting the show. Fucking love you.
Ooh. And as we always say at the end of these things, keep those eyes on the sky.